So another one for my Deep Space Nine shelf, although it could also be, or so I thought, for my Next Generation shelf. Although, as it turns out, having read the magazine a little bit, this Maquis Raider didn't actually turn up until Voyager, which I hadn't really appreciated because I'd assumed it was just a sort of a standard Maquis attack ship, but actually it turns out it isn't. It's actually substantially bigger than the first Maquis ship we ever saw, but we do then see it again in Deep Space Nine being used by Eddington. So I can put it on my Deep Space Nine shelf with a clear conscience, and I got it for my Deep Space Nine shelf because I was thinking that we do see a little bit more of the Maquis in Deep Space Nine than perhaps anywhere else, and obviously in Voyager their ship doesn't last terribly long, so it kind of works. I always thought it was quite an unusual ship for Star Trek because it has wings like the bird of prey, and not many starships do. So this is an inter-atmospheric ship, and the background goes that it was originally a Federation class of transport vessel, and the Maquis basically, stole or bought several of them, and they upgraded them significantly with better engines that made them very, very quick. Phasers, photon torpedo launchers, but it's sort of bigger than a runabout, but not as big as a starship, this Maquis Raider. There is the sort of Maquis fighter class as well, which is more runabout-esque, I think it's fair to say. But this one, they beefed it up for Voyagers so that they could justify having more Maquis on Voyager as part of the crew than would have been the case if they kept it at a sort of shuttle scale. So they bolted on elements to the first Maquis ship that we see, basically, that Rolaren piloted, and so we end up with a slightly larger Maquis Raider. We do also see Federation fighters in Deep Space Nine, which again we'd never seen before. The idea that they would actually have little fighters. I mean, we saw planetary defense kind of almost drones, I think, in the Next Generation, and we saw also sort of little training vessels used by the cadets. But really, until we saw these guys and the fighters in Deep Space Nine later, there weren't many ships that were at this sort of scale that were clearly designed for combat as such. Just popping all its bits out. So there she is. She's a little bit of weight to her, not masses of weight, because I mean in fairness she is quite thin, but I think there is still some metal in there. I think she's too heavy to be just plastic. There's a lot of detail on her. I'm actually surprised by the amount of detail for a model of this scale. And you can see there, she's got quite a few impulse engines at the back. So she's got the proverbial go faster strikes. She's also got a little torpedo launcher at the back, which, to be fair, it can't do a lot. It may use micro torpedoes like the runabouts do, possibly. But apparently it wasn't enough to bother a Cardassian ship's shields particularly. Phasers, like the bird of prey, phasers on the wingtips there for for ship-to-ship use, and a reasonable sized cargo bay as well, apparently. So it's capable of carrying a reasonable number of passengers, or a reasonable amount of cargo in between planetary systems. And that was their sort of original purpose in life before they were modified by the Maquis. So it's quite a chunky little thing, but as I say, it was just a sort of a kind of ship design I really liked when I saw it, because it just wasn't something that we'd ever seen in the series before. I think to that date, this concept of a little ship actually sort of with wings. I mean, it harkens back for me to sort of the days of Buck Rogers in the 25th century, when the ships had wings when they went into atmosphere and so on. So there you go. So there she is on her little stand. An interesting sort of establishing shot of it there, but you can see the sort of level of detail that's on the top level of it there. It's nice. There's some nice renders for the covers of these magazines. And apparently this is a Jude class so the front cover tells me. 68 meters long. So yeah, so that's the Maquis Raider, and that will join my my Deep Space Nine shelf. It could probably fly up into the Voyager shelf, or possibly down into the the Next Generation era sort of shelf. But it will dock in my Deep Space Nine level for the time being, I think, and will help to flesh that out a little bit more. So with that, I shall move on to a rather larger ship next. Cheers.